Hey everyone, welcome to the Eat to Win show where sports nutrition meets peak performance. Get ready for expert insights, real stories, and tips to help you win with every meal. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Eat to Win podcast show. I'm your host, Ronnie Harper. We're here to talk about all things related to sports nutrition and how we help athletes win. Whether you're an athlete or just passionate about sports nutrition, this is a place to be. Today, we're thrilled to have an amazing guest, Korey Van Wyk. Korey, welcome to the Eat to Win podcast show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Well, we're going to be talking about the dietary supplement world and common pre-workout ingredients and just anything to do with dietary supplements. So let's jump right in. So Korey, let's start off with a story, and I want to hear your story when it comes to the first dietary supplement you ever tried and your experience with that. What was that?
So, a lot of people probably, my first dietary supplement I used was protein powder. I was in high school, and so this would have been in the early 2000s. And, I had a very, I was playing football at the time, and, the approach or the message was, it's dangerous, you're basically taking steroids, don't do it. But, high school kids I wanted to get bigger, stronger. I wanted to be a better athlete. So I said, I'm going to try this protein powder thing and hopefully it'll make me bigger and stronger. So just went to Walmart, bought my protein powder, and it was not steroids. It did not have that effect whatsoever. But that was the first dietary supplement that I used.
Yeah. You and 100 million other teenage boys seem to go by and be sucked in by the additional protein, looking for that magic pill. And I was too. Now, I have to go back and say my first, it wasn't a dietary supplement, but when I got interested was when I watched Rocky way back in the day and he started eating raw eggs. So
absolutely.
That was my story. So let's talk about another story, and that is an experience that changed your whole approach. You really get into dietary supplements. You really have a mind and a space for that. I love studying about it. What was that one experience early in your career that really started to pivot you and made you dig a little deeper in this subject?
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to nail down one experience. I would say it's kind of like the culmination of a bunch of little experiences where, like you alluded to, it's really easy to get sucked in, even if you're in the field, or in my case, getting education in the field. You get caught up in finding the edge. You get caught up in what's the new thing. The marketing language surrounding dietary supplements, they're extremely good at what they do, and they're extremely good at tailoring the message to a target audience. And, I was high school, college, grad school, I was, no different than a lot of people. And I tried a lot of things. I tried a lot. And to probably no one's surprise, none of it really worked.
Yeah.
There was nothing I ever took that I experienced a significant difference. And over time, that obviously, through doing that, I thought I was doing some research. And then when you have negative experience after negative experience, you dive a little deeper, and then you find out that there's really, from a performance side in particular, there's not a whole lot that is extremely meaningful that's going to impact and have this world-changing, life-changing experience. So that has probably impacted me the most when it comes to my career. Now, I'm still very interested in dietary supplements, but that expectation of it being a complete game changer is gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've heard some people say, well, you agree or disagree with this, you can't out-supplement a bad diet, right? So the word supplement means supplement. And some people, they jump into the supplement bandwagon expecting to be the solution, and they have it upside down. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to expectations and supplements, so my perspective on the whole idea of like a supplement is a supplement to the diet, and there are certain ones that definitely fall within that. Meaning, are you taking this to fill a nutrient gap, right? Multivitamin, fish oil, specific vitamins like maybe vitamin D, where yes, you are truly taking this because you do not get enough in your diet or you can't get enough in your diet. When I look back, I was taking supplements because I wanted almost like a pharmaceutical effect. Like I wanted something that was going well beyond something that would give me something beyond what just physiologically and physically I could do. And when you're talking about manipulating your physiology to the degree that it's going to completely make a huge, massive difference, we just don't have any natural compounds that can do that to any meaningful degree, And so when we talk about the supplements that are most effective from performance, we're talking about like a 10% difference in performance. That's about all you can realistically expect. And if it's getting you more than that, you may not be taking what you think you're taking. And if you want more than that, you would have to look to actual pharmaceuticals, which obviously has its own issues. So that's the statement from expectations I would kind of put in people's minds. If you're taking this supplement that you're trying to get like a true ergogenic or pharmaceutical-like effect that you can't get just by just filling a dietary gap, I would just definitely temper expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of dives into our next question that we had. It was misconceptions, and I think you've already put a framework of that is people's perception when they start taking it versus what it's going to do. Is it filling a gap, or are you trying to look for an effect? So that is perception is so much. And if you go into a typical supplement store, it's amazing, right? The marketing, the message, it'll pull you in.
Yeah.
Even a seasoned person, sometimes it'll pull you into trying to promise things that aren't really true or there. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're good. It's overwhelming almost. Like, again, like you said, even for people like us who study it, who are in it, and they're very clever with their language. They're very clever with kind of towing the line between saying it's kind of falls in that category of, well, it's not necessarily wrong, but it's also not necessarily applicable to whatever that supplement might be, right? Or they might actually show, I'm thinking, I've seen, you see supplement labels that might actually show like a graph or a chart from a published study. And that looks really good to the average person, but that might be the only study. And we know like that's just not enough. Or they might not fully disclose the ins and outs of what that study looked at. Is it even in humans? Like there's plenty of dietary supplements that get released on the market that have zero human data. It's all in animals, or it's all in vitro, So that's the kind of stuff that is you really need to be careful with. You need to watch out for, and it's easily it can really, if you don't have the background, it can really suck you in for sure.
Yeah. So let's look back 10 years ago and just think of what the supplement industry was like, what supplement options you had, how you acquired them, what was on the market, and then we're at current day. Corey, let's look forward 10 years. What is this thing going to look like 10 years from now?
Yeah. So let's see, 10 years ago. So I don't know. Anytime I think about the supplement industry, did you ever see the documentary Bigger, Stronger, Faster? There's this part in that documentary where they like are making a supplement like in this kitchen, right? And I think that movie or that documentary came out probably around maybe a little more than 10 years ago. And so I think that's still there maybe was a time where that was actually true, where you, in theory, could do that and have it be quote unquote legal. There's probably something that would still have to happen for that to, for that to really result in something actually on shelves. But there definitely has been a increase in regulatory expectations and product, quality control. That's the word I'm looking for, quality control. But, I think back then, 10 years ago, I think creatine was kind of still, I feel like creatine was almost still thinking like, oh, is this a steroid? Is this good or bad? But I do remember one in particular that had a lot of excitement around it. And it just didn't, as far as I know, it went nowhere. And that was phosphatidic acid. Do you remember this at all?
Yep.
I remember phosphatidic acid was going to basically be the new and better leucine, because it, like leucine, could stimulate mTOR, which I'm sure listeners would know is the kind of that first initial step in stimulating protein synthesis. But it had a different binding site or a different action site on mTOR. So the thought was it could actually be synergistic with leucine. And it is like one of those things like, okay, mechanistically, seems like there's something there. This is something that we really can't get enough of through the diet. So it fits the reason why it needs to be a supplement. There was some early research that was promising, and then it just didn't pan out. And so that's one I particularly remember. So fast forward to 10 years in the future, I think we're going to continue to see more regulatory improvement. I think we're going to continue to see that these supplement companies that don't, maybe follow the laws that they're supposed to, they're just not going to last, because now the spotlight is on them. Now people are more and more aware of third-party testing. They expect more from their supplements, because you now have pharmaceutical companies getting in the game, and they're so far ahead from manufacturing standpoint that, and now you've got, Olympic athletes trying it, using them. You get people in the news all the time that have gotten caught or that have used a supplement that was adulterated.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just going to be a point where that's just not going to fly anymore if you're not making it in a high quality way. And I think right now, one of the biggest supplement ingredient or the types is nootropics. And I think we're just going to continue to see more and more things come on the market, or more and more things get maybe looked at harder for their ability to enhance cognitive performance. Like we've seen that with cholinergics. Certain types of mushroom extracts are popular with that right now, like lion's mane. And as our society just, we're just going to dive deeper into being surrounded by technology, AI. Can you get things done faster? Can you get it done faster and with higher quality? I think that's going to be the future of the types of ingredients we're going to see pop up in types of products.
Yeah. Just listening to you say that, the thing that popped in my mind is personalization. You put your finger in a probe, and it analyzes and comes back and says you're deficient in XYZ, and a non-invasive blood or some quick, fast test, and then it comes back and it dials in and says, I think that might be, and then AI mixed in with all that. But it's going to be fun to see, stay up to date. I think research is exploding and revealing and helping to refine quicker and faster the haves and have-nots in this space. And the consuming of that information is not left to just the true sports scientists, but now the lay people, like with examine.com, they can process this a lot quicker and faster and do it in a lot more efficient way. So, well, cool. Stay with us as we take a short break and thank our sponsors. You're listening to the Eat to Win podcast show with your host, Ronnie Harbor. Liquid Fuel is a new sports and hydration product formulated by a sports dietitian to give athletes the edge to train and compete longer. It contains a low glycemic carbohydrate, platinose, Designed to keep blood sugar levels more stable to provide energy for 3 to 4 hours without the blood sugar crash seen in other leading sports nutrition drinks. Its unique 4-part electrolyte formula includes 50% of your daily magnesium need to optimize muscle function. Liquid Fuel is naturally sweetened along with no artificial ingredients or colors. Currently being used by high school, collegiate, and professional teams, Liquid Fuel allows you to live the life with confidence knowing you're properly fueling your body. Visit drinkliquidfuel.com and use the code MSD10 in order to get 10% off of your order. Welcome back to the Eat to Win podcast, where we're talking with Korey Van Wyk. Korey, let's get back to it. I want to back up and talk about advice for people just starting out. You got a few years behind you. You love this topic. You've done sort of a deep dive into it. You understand it well. Somebody starting out, they go like, where do I start trying to process? Because there's so much on the market, so many different options, so many different brands. It's amazing. What advice would you give that young professional?
Specifically as it pertains to dietary supplements?
Yeah. How do they navigate this wild, wild west still that we have, and how many options we have and brands we have, and where they start trying to understand all this?
Yeah, I mean, probably where I would start, I would recommend that they rely on things like Examine. So what's nice right now is that
So explain what Examine is. We both mentioned it, but explain that to us.
So examine.com, I usually explain it to people. It's like an encyclopedia, an online encyclopedia of supplements. So you could type in creatine, and it has a page on creatine that compiles a very large portion of the research. And then it also has it separates it out by things that's been studied for and what's the strength of evidence on those things. And then you can do all these sorts of things that look into the different effects of that supplement that they've compiled. But you've got other things, like we have a number of research reviews, like monthly subscription research reviews out that cover dietary supplements. So the first one that comes to mind, well, the first one, I think the OG one was the Alan Aragon research review. That was like one of the OG, research reviews. And he's still going with that. That's still going strong. He covers supplements. You have things like MASS, Monthly Applications in Strength Sports, by Eric Helms and Mike Zordos and Eric Trexler. They cover supplements in almost every issue. That's where I would start, because if you do try to go just to PubMed or Google Scholar, it will be overwhelming. And not only do these resources, they do condense it for you, but places like MASS and Reps is another one, which is from Lane Norton. They do hint at, okay, we've covered this in the past and here's what we found. Now we're going to review the new thing on whatever supplement based on what we've already released and what we've looked at. So even if you're not diving into it all of it, they at least frame it for you. That's where I would start with things like supplements.
Man, those resources 10 years ago didn't even exist, and it was difficult to synthesize anything. Just one article come out and your brain would try to wrap your head around that in regards to the big picture. But now there's lots of resources, and with AI, it's just getting easier and easier
for sure
to extract out exactly
Can I mention an AI tool that I use personally that I think is maybe worth mentioning?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Consensus is an interesting one that I use personally for just my work, because it's specifically for looking at peer-reviewed research. So you could type in, does creatine enhance strength? And then it will do its AI thing to compile the literature for you. And then since it's Consensus, it will actually give you its take on what the research shows. And then you can always do filters, okay, show only human data, show only meta-analyses, all those types of things. So that's one that I use as it's almost my addition to Examine, because you can get anything. It's recent, it shows the most recent stuff. And that's always my initial check of okay, I've never heard of this ingredient before. Okay, is it on Examine? Yes or no? If it's not, then I'll go to Consensus, or I'll maybe just do both anyway and just have like an initial brush with it.
We'll put those in the show notes, so don't worry about trying to write any of this down. You'll be able to come back and reference it. Korey, as we come to the conclusion, let's have a little fun here. So Korey, just curious, if you could pick a different career, what was the other option besides what you're doing?
Oh man. Well, back in the day, there was no other option, right? Like I just knew it. As I get older, I actually have thought about this a little bit because as you get older, you need some hobbies, or you need some you just kind of think about life in general, and probably would have been like journalism. It probably would have been like probably would have been like a reporter or something like that, and which is interesting because I'm now in the publishing industry, and it's kind of leveraged that interest of mine. That's probably what I would have got into.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I ask young people, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm going like, I still don't know what I want to be. And
right, I'm still growing up.
Yeah, so many things I want to do. And it's like, that's probably keeps me alive, is I want to see and do so many things. So, all right, rapid fire round, coffee or tea? Which one?
Coffee.
Morning or night owl?
Night owl.
I think I'm both. Favorite pre-workout treat? What do you go for? What's your favorite?
Man, this is. I saw this on the notes, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I have one. Yeah. It's a kind of a boring answer, but sometimes there are certain protein bars that have are a little sweeter, and I feel like better about eating it, like before training. Yeah. That's probably it. Yeah.
Okay. Best advice you ever received about nutrition? Who mentored you? What did they say? What's stuck with you?
I would say, the best advice, or maybe I'll say realization, like kind of glass shattering moment for me, was when like PN really came out with their approach of behavior first versus like, do you just know the knowledge? Do you have the information? Do you know? And they were just like, hey, just because you know something, just because you have the information, does not mean you're actually going to do the thing. Does not mean you're actually going to be able to, or that you will do the things necessary. And I was just like, it just blew my mind, because I'm like, that's right. Like I see that all the time. So I wouldn't say, I don't know Berardi. I've met Berardi, but he's not really a direct mentor. But PN, Berardi, they've been kind of like the biggest consistent, I guess, quote unquote, mentor throughout my career, for sure. Yes.
Nice. One thing people don't know about you, Korey, tell us the secret.
Yeah. Well, I luckily I usually have a go-to interesting fact or something like answer for this, because I am a triplet.
Okay. There we go.
Yes. So
nice.
The first question people usually ask with that is like, wait, there's 3 of you? And I'm like, no, there's not 3 of me. It's 2 boys and a girl. And so if you get me confused,
is that,
yeah. So it was that's like kind of my interesting fact, and made growing up really fun.
Very nice. Well, Korey, as I said, we're coming to the end of this. Let's talk about a couple last things here. Now, we've already sort of alluded to this, but if you could sort of like this is your go-to book or resource, I think we've already answered it, but let's put a bow on this. What is that one resource that you think is in regards to dietary supplements? Once again,
that's a fantastic question, because there's not a great. So this is interesting as someone who's in publishing. There's not a great one out there from a book perspective, and the inherent challenge is, as you can probably guess, is speed. I can mention an upcoming one that I think will be really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is like insider knowledge right now. Like this is like I'm giving some insider knowledge. So there's a book out that's been out for a while called The Athlete's Guide to Sports Supplements. It came out in 2013 by Kim Mueller and Josh Hengst. And the next edition of that is going to release probably by the summer, maybe sooner. And that is being fully revised, fully updated. Now, Dr. Lonnie Lowry is on instead of Josh. So he brings a wealth of information and dietary supplements. He's been on the regulatory side. He's been in for decades. And so I would keep an eye out for that. But, the guys that examine, the people that examine do such a good job that that's just what I would go to as far as like reading material. But then, yes, I on the book side though, I'm trying to do my darndest to get my role in publishing, get better, more resources out there on this topic specifically.
Well, if you haven't picked up, we've been talking mostly to the young professional that is starting off into this world of supplementation and trying to get their ground base as to where they're going and how they're going to process sports dietary supplements. So let's pivot on our last question, and let's talk to the athlete. And this is our last one. Let's talk to them, and that one piece of advice. An athlete comes to you and says, "Hey, Korey, I want to take some supplements, fill in the blank." And so give us that advice that you start off with when you start talking with an athlete about wanting to supplement something.
So the first thing I would do is get a sense for what they think it's going to do. Like, what are they hoping to gain from it? Mm-hmm. So are there reasonings, expectations completely misaligned or aligned with whatever it is they might be thinking of taking? Now, my approach historically, and this is the approach I took as a strength coach, has always been education and then try to be supportive, because in my experience, and at the beginning, I talked about this when I was in high school, but in my experience, athletes are going to take it if they want to take it. They're going to do, if they're like, hey, I want to take something, I want to take a pre-workout, they're probably going to do it. And so after a while, I felt like if I just said like, don't take it, that's dangerous or that's stupid, it wasn't very helpful. So I'll offer to evaluate it for them. So I'll say, hey, like, okay, are you okay if I take a look at your pre-workout that you're thinking about? And hopefully they say yes. And then, I educate based on that. And then they are still like, I really want to take something, then I can maybe suggest something that's just better, safer, more effective.
Yeah. I like it. So Korey, time just flew by here. We're wrapping this up. Lots more we'll talk about. It's about having Korey back on a future podcast where we'll do a deeper dive on one of these subjects. Korey, how can our audience get in touch with you? And before we say goodbye, how can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on all the socials. So if you just search my name, you'll find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm most active on those two. And then, I also have a podcast called The Performance Connection. We have multiple episodes on supplements, everything from the supplement industry to cognitive performance to greens powders. And we also have training. So anything related to performance is on there. So go ahead and check that out. Yeah, otherwise, feel free to message me on LinkedIn or Instagram.
But they can search the podcast store under what? The Performance Podcast? Is that how they find you?
Yeah, if you just Google Performance Connection Podcast, then you'll find it. Yeah.
You'll go check out Korey's podcast over there, and you can pick him up and listen and continue to learn more. So, hey, that's it for today's episode of the Eat to Win podcast show. Big thanks to Korey Van Wyk for joining us. And Korey, thank you for sharing your expertise and valuable knowledge as we laid some groundwork here. If you could do us a big favor, rate, review, and like us. And until next time, let's keep on winning.
All right. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks for joining us on the Eat to Win show. Remember, every meal is a step toward victory. Until next time, stay strong and keep winning.